What is going on, Clutch Crew Sports fans? This is Connor, the co-host with the most, welcoming you back to another episode of Clutch Crew Sports, coming off of probably the single greatest weekend of playoff football I have ever seen in my entire life. Three of the games were decided by game-winning field goals, and the fourth one was an overtime thriller. So certainly no shortage of great games to watch. Even if you were a neutral fan and didn't have any rooting interest, you at least got to watch some good football this weekend. So we have a lot to recap with the past games. We have to go over the losing teams and what the future may look like for them, and also previewing the upcoming conference championship games and which teams that we think will be going to the Super Bowl in 3 weeks' time. So a lot to get into. Hope you guys enjoy. Now let me introduce you to the rest of the crew.
What's up, everyone? This is Zach, the host who is a fan of losing sports teams. Trying to think of a
I'm not sure that fits though, considering that you're a Lightning fan and they've won back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. So.
Yeah, but granted, that's the sport I follow the least about, and the teams that I do like, the Jags, USF, the Magic, the Trailblazers this year, they're all far, far, far from the playoffs and a good record. So I just figured, I guess you got the, Stanley Cup champion pictures on my screen there. But yeah, that's what I came up with for now. We'll see. I might change later, but
gotta come up with something a little more catchy.
Yeah, something a little bit less to say. But yeah, it was a great weekend of football, and I'm excited to talk about this.
And what's going on, guys? It's Eric, the ranting co-host here. Definitely got to agree with Connor. I mean, this definitely was an insane week of football. I really enjoyed everything I got to see. I don't know if this upcoming week, we'll be able to top that or not. It's going to be a tough task, but regardless, we got a lot to talk about, so definitely ready to get into
it. Yeah, what's up? What's up, guys? It's Nate here. Kind of going to follow off what the other guys said, but I don't think it can be said enough how good this weekend was for football. So looking forward to talk about all the games and everything that went down. So
yeah, it's going to be very difficult for any weekends in the future to actually top what happened this weekend. So we'll see if they can even get close to that. Hopefully these conference championship games are good and we don't revert to how it was on Wild Card weekend when there was a lot of blowouts. But we're going to start off talking about the losing teams, first of all, and we're going to start with the AFC, the better conference, by the way. Sorry, Caleb. But we're going to start with Zach and Eric's nemesis, the Tennessee Titans. They suffered a loss at home against the Cincinnati Bengals, a game-winning field goal by Evan McPherson to win it for them. Now, the big question for the Tennessee Titans going forward is obviously, we talked a lot coming into this game that they were underrated, that, a lot of people have been sleeping on them. They got into the playoffs in the number 1 seed without Derrick Henry for most of the season. And then all of a sudden, we thinking, okay, like they have Derrick Henry back. They're going to, they have a really good chance to really actually go to the Super Bowl and maybe even win. And then you come out and lose at home in your first playoff game with Derrick Henry back against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Tennessee Titans seem to have some kind of curse against AFC North teams in the playoffs. They're like 0-4 against AFC North teams or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe we should have learned our lesson on that one. But the big question that I have for Nate here is really there's two big questions for the Titans going forward. Obviously, the main one is Ryan Tannehill. He was pretty much the sole reason why they lost that game. I mean, I wouldn't say the sole reason, but the main reason they lost that game. 3 interceptions, most of them coming in crucial moments, giving the Bengals good field position, setting them up for some of those field goals. So what do you think the Titans are going to do with him going forward potentially? And also, what the future you think looks like for Derrick Henry, because obviously he was back in that game, but he did not look the same in that game coming off of that injury. I think the Titans probably should have stuck with Foreman a little bit more. So Nate, give us your thoughts on the future of those two guys for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, so I think for Ryan Tannehill, it's definitely a tricky spot because I don't dislike him. I think he's a solid quarterback, but he's not a guy who's going to win you a Super Bowl. He wasn't that guy with the Dolphins, and he's had a better supporting cast with the Titans, but I think he's the one piece that's been holding them back to this point. So I think it's time for them to think about moving on from him. I don't know if you look at somebody in free agency. I know it's a pretty weak draft class, and since they did make the divisional round, they're going to be towards the end of the first round anyways. So I don't know if that's a viable option, but I do think it's time for them to really figure out a plan there at quarterback, because if they want to try and compete for a Super Bowl while they still have these other pieces there with Henry and Brown and all of them, they've got to find that big time quarterback there. So I think I guess even starting next year if they go for a younger guy or someone who needs to be developed. But I think by the end of next year for sure he's going to be. I'd be surprised if he's not out of Tennessee there. And then on the other side, with Derrick Henry, I didn't get to watch as much of that game as I wanted to on Saturday, but he did look, like you said, a little bit off coming back from that injury. He had the touchdown early, but he didn't look like himself as much. And hopefully with an off season to rest and recover and all that, he'll be back to his old self for next year. But it is kind of something to watch going forward. Running backs, historically don't have a very long shelf life, and he's basically been the entire Titans offense. Like we said with Tannehill, they don't get a whole lot out of their quarterback, and most of that quarterback, passing offense is basically based off of what Henry does on the ground. So he's basically been carrying them for like 3-4 years now, and I think it's going to start to take its toll, especially on a guy that's that big and tall, and all of that I think it's going to add up soon. So I'm a huge fan of his. Obviously, he's fun to watch, but I'm not saying he's done after one game, but it'll be very interesting next year to see if he can get back to form or if he's going to start, going downhill as injuries start to add up.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a lot of interesting things for the Titans going forward. I know Zach and Eric are going to be hoping for, all the negative things that would possibly come out of that. They're hoping Derrick Henry doesn't refine that form and Ryan Tannehill's still the quarterback. I'm assuming that's correct.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, so enough about the Tennessee Titans. They got beat. Now we're going to move on to the one road team that actually was not able to pull off a win, and that was the Buffalo Bills. Unfortunately for my dad, there was some swearing and hat throwing going on when I was watching the game with him. Every time something would happen there, really a heartbreaking loss for them. They were, it was a back and forth game in the fourth quarter, and the Bills had gone down and gotten a touchdown to take the lead by 3 with 13 seconds left. And in the span of 2 to 3 plays, Mahomes was able to get the Chiefs down in field goal range in 13 seconds and to send it to overtime. The Chiefs obviously won the coin toss and were able to go down and get the game-winning touchdown. The Bills being the latest team to fall victim to the NFL overtime rules. But, that's a discussion for another time. So moving back to the Bills, obviously the Chiefs are kind of becoming this boogeyman for the Buffalo Bills, kind of like how the Patriots were for a long time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers were always a really good team, but then when it came down to it in the playoffs, they would always run into the Patriots. And it's looking like this trend is sort of starting to form with the Bills. They have a really good team, and you think maybe this is going to be their year, but then, of course, you run into the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs are able to knock them out. Things are going to be different, most likely in Buffalo next year. I think the key for them is most of the team is going to be back together at least. Like Josh Allen's obviously not going anywhere. They still have Stephon Diggs and Beasley and some of these guys on defense locked up for at least another year. They should be getting Tre'Davious White back healthy. I'm sure that was something that they were sorely missing in that game, was missing Tre'Davious White, a lockdown corner, because Tyreek Hill was just running circles around them all game. But like I said, they should be getting a lot of those guys back. They're still starting to develop some of these younger guys. They really somewhat started getting a run game going there with Derek Singletary, but it's definitely an issue that they're going to have to address going forward. Possibly maybe in the draft, like in the second round or something, or maybe in free agency, they can pick up another running back to pair with Singletary because Zach Moss has been injured a lot. I know they were hoping for more out of him, but he's been injured and unproductive, so it's looking like they could be moving on from him in the near future. But I think the big question for the Buffalo Bills going forward really is going to be what the offense and the defense are going to look like if both of their coordinators end up leaving, because Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator, and Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator, have both been doing a lot of head coaching interviews. There's quite a few. I think there's 6 or 7 head coaching vacancies right now. There could potentially be an 8th one if there's some rumors coming out of New Orleans that Sean Payton might not be returning to head coach. So there's a lot of open jobs, and Daboll especially has been on the radar for a lot of teams here in the past few seasons. He got a lot of interviews last year, but he decided to come back and try and win it again with Buffalo. Frazier, I think maybe he got like one. He wasn't really as big of a head coaching candidate last year as Daboll was, but he's starting to pick up some steam because of the fact that the Bills had the number 1 defense this year. And, that Bills defense has been solid for quite a few years under him. So he's starting to get attention. Now, if I had to guess, I don't think that Leslie Frazier is going to end up going anywhere. I think he's going to stay. I feel like if any of these teams are going to, go after a defensive coordinator head coach, they're probably going to go after someone like Dan Quinn or Todd Bowles or possibly even Matt Eberflus, the Colts defensive coordinator. I think Frazier is going to stay, so that defense should be fine. But I definitely think there's a good possibility that Daboll doesn't return. And if I'm being completely honest, I think that could actually be a good thing for the Buffalo Bills without Brian Daboll as their offensive coordinator, because if there's one thing that I've noticed with him is that he, for whatever reason, like he goes into the game and he has this game plan that he wants to put into the game, and it seems, that's fine. Obviously you need to have a game plan, but he doesn't seem to be able to make the adjustments necessary when they need to be made. He seems like he just wants to stick to that game plan. He wants to keep doing it, keep trying it, and like it's not working, but yet he still goes with it. Like, I think he spent too long trying to stick with the run game against the Chiefs last night when they should have just been putting the game in Josh Allen's hands from the start. They could have possibly gotten some more points and have avoided, having the Chiefs only need a field goal. Like maybe they could have been up by 6 or something like that, needing the Chiefs needing a touchdown in 13 seconds. Or, they kept doing all these things where like probably at least like in a series of 8 plays, they called like 5 quarterback sweeps. And like, yeah, the first time it got like, 10, 11, 12 yards, but then it slowly kept getting worse. Like, okay, now we're getting 7 yards. Now we're only getting 4. And now like the next 3, we're getting like 2 yards at most. And it's like, you need to stop doing that. So I think that would be a good thing for the Buffalo Bills going forward, actually, if they don't have Brian Daboll as their offensive coordinator. Bring in a fresh face, bring in someone new for Josh Allen, because, this team has a lot of talent and they will be back. I mean, this is unlike the Tennessee Titans, the other team we're talking about here. I think the Bills have a much higher chance of getting back to this spot and potentially still having a chance to make a run at a Super Bowl. So that's going to be it for the Buffalo Bills. We are going to move on to the NFC now, and starting with, of course, again, the number 1 seed. It was the first time, I can't remember what the stat was. It's like the first time since 04 or something like that, or 05, that both 1 seeds went out in the divisional round. But it did happen. The Packers taking a loss at Lambeau in the snow. Special teams really killing them in that game. But the big question, obviously, for Eric is the question that's been on everyone's mind since the beginning of the season. What is going to be the situation with Aaron Rodgers? Is he going to return? Is he not going to return? If he doesn't return, is he going to retire? Is he going to go somewhere else? If he doesn't return, there was some talk in the offseason that Devontae Adams was talking about that he would leave the team if Aaron Rodgers left the team. What I don't know. Just try and give us your perspective, Eric, on what you think is going to happen with the Packers going forward. And, if they don't have Aaron Rodgers, how well you think they're going to be able to do without him, or how well you think they're going to be able to do if he stays.
Yeah, this is definitely a lot to unpack here. I will say what I expect will be the least likely thing that would happen would be him going to another team. since he still has another year left on his contract. He would have to be traded in order for that to happen. And I don't.
I thought he voided the last year of his contract.
Did he? I didn't know that.
There was something in the offseason that he like voided.
I don't know.
Like
I don't
the
know
last
how
year
he,
of his.
I don't know
There's
how
some,
he
I
could
think
void
there
that.
is an. I think there's an out. Actually, I think
Oh,
Connor might be right.
Yeah,
He
he
had an
did
out in
he
his
did
clause.
something in the offseason where like they had a discussion where he basically like voided the last year of his contract, which was like that's kind of what started all the like there was rumors before that obviously, but then that really heated up the talks. Like, oh, like he's literally telling the Packers like I don't want to like play on this contract anymore. I want to void it. So now they're like, oh, so this really could be his last year in Green Bay.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Okay, I did not know that. I just assumed he still had the like 1 year left. So I mean, to me, I don't know. Supposedly his relationship with the GM is improved. I've been hearing that, and he's getting along with management better and everything. These are the latest reports that have come out. Who knows if those are really true or not, but I don't know. The biggest problem for Green Bay though is like also from what I'm hearing is that they are projected to be around 50 million over the cap or something like that going into the season, or if it's not 50, it's really close to that. I think only the Saints are in a worse position. So he may not want to deal with losing a bunch of pieces, and then maybe he does retire or go to another team. But I don't know. Like Zach and I were kind of talking about this yesterday a little bit, and I know Zach said he thinks he's going to retire. I don't think he's quite ready to retire yet. And if this is true that him and the management are getting along better and everything, I think he will come back. But the problem is that assuming he comes back and then whether they franchise tag or extend Devontae Adams or whatever, that's going to cost a lot of money, and they're already over the cap. So then, in order for this to happen, they're going to have to make sacrifices, whether it be losing some of the defensive players, or if like some of the O line or something like that, and that's going to be a problem. So this is just a really tough thing to predict, but I do think they find a way to make it work. I mean, these teams always seem to find a way to make it work with the cap when they're over the cap. Like, I know what the Saints have done in the past is somehow they roll contracts over to like 3 years down the line or whatever and make it affect their 2025 cap instead of their 2022 cap or whatever. Like, I don't know, because the salary cap's complicated in terms of how the rules.
Non-existent half the time.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like even when these teams are way over the cap, they somehow find a way to keep almost everybody. So I feel like somehow, I don't know how exactly, I don't have an answer there, but I feel like somehow, some way, they're gonna make it work. They'll keep Aaron Rodgers happy for another year and get him to stick around. So like I said, I don't know how they're gonna do that, but I do think they find a way. I don't think he's obviously not, he's getting up there in age, but he's not obviously as old as like Brady is, who we'll talk about next with the Bucks. But like, so I don't think he's quite ready yet. And with him only having won the one Super Bowl and been to one Super Bowl, like I know in his heart he wants to get back there and have that feeling again. So I don't think he's going to retire just yet. But they've got a lot to deal with and a lot to watch if you're a Green Bay Packers fan.
For sure. Definitely a lot to unpack. Well, funny enough, talking about NFC teams that have a lot to unpack, if there's one team that has a lot more to unpack than the Green Bay Packers, it is definitely the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the defending Super Bowl champions. There will be a new Super Bowl champion this year. The Buccaneers taken out in that upset against the Rams, where the Rams almost pulled an Atlanta Falcons and let Brady come back and beat them, but the Rams were able to hold on in that game. Now, obviously, the main question with the Bucks is Tom Brady. There's these rumors every year that he's going to retire and blah 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 blah. But it seems like they're really kind of catching a bit more steam this year, especially given like I said that he's 44, he's going to be 45. He's even though he's still playing at a high level, it's just like eventually, like, you have to call it quits at some point. Like, even if you're still playing at a high level, like, just some of these players, it's like, okay, how long do you really want to devote your life to this? You want to spend more time with your family, whatever. That's the looming question with that. But obviously, the other thing to unpack with the Buccaneers is, I mentioned this with the Bills, but even more so with the Buccaneers. Like, there's a very high possibility that both Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles do not return next season. They get head coaching jobs. The other issue with the Bucs is that, they're another one of these teams that's going to be having cap issues next year. They have a lot of guys that they're going to need to re-sign. Brady obviously he's got some weird thing going on with his contract where, like, a lot of the next years on his deal are voided. Same with Gronkowski. Gronkowski's talking about he might not want to come back. Chris Godwin's going to be unrestricted free agent. Levante David looks like he could be, unless they do something there, he could be headed for the free agent market again. Leonard Fournette is going to be an unrestricted free agent. So a lot of, things for the Buccaneers to go at. So I know this is a lot of information for Zach, but I guess, first talk about Brady, what you think is going to happen there, and what you think the Buccaneers need to do to, like, who they should maybe really key in on re-signing, and what they need to do to get back into the playoffs next year.
Yeah, so definitely a lot to unpack here. Like Eric said that with the Packers. This is a similar situation with a very old team that has got a lot of, problems now and cap problems anyways, and trying to figure out what they'll do. Now, my thing on Brady, I've kind of flip-flopped in the past few days on what my stance on what I think he will do or won't do. And right now, anyways, this could change, but currently, I do think this is it. I think he's going to retire as of currently.
All right, on the record.
Yeah, on the
Brady
record.
Retiring.
January 24th, as Zach is saying he's retiring. Because, I could have a change of mind.
But I was like, but it could change on January 25th. We don't know.
It could, yeah. But I do think he's going to retire. I saw what Rick Stroud, prominent Tampa Bay sports writer, said about Giselle, his wife, wanting him, not wanting to see him get hit and tackled and stuff like that. And then his, spending more time with his kids and his family and stuff, because he really hasn't been able to do that when, you're an ultra competitive quarterback like he is. He doesn't have time for all the activities that a father would have with their kids. So I think with all that going on and the fact that he's, the age that he's at, he's already done enough. It's not like it's not like anything he really does now adds anything to his legacy. Whereas, like, Rodgers would really benefit from another Super Bowl. Brady at this point, like, really doesn't benefit that much from another Super Bowl. It's just more glory for him, but it's already, he's undisputed as the GOAT. There's nobody really that denies that. So I think he's pretty much done everything in the NFL he's wanted to do. I don't see him having any more. He could always find some reason to get motivated and come back for revenge season or whatever, but I think he's going to be done. And then that's going to bring up a whole big question on what the Bucs do for quarterback. I think they'll, from what sources are saying, if he does retire, they're going to look to go in the free agency market and probably go with a free agent guy instead of their backup, Blaine Gabbert or
Blaine Gabbert.
Kyle Trask. I think they'll go the free agent route. But so that's the big domino. And if that happens, the Bucs are, obviously going to fall back to being an average team probably without Brady. But as far as what they should prioritize in the offseason, it's tough. Like you said, I don't know what the cap situation will look like, but I know they don't have much. They did re-sign Vita Vea recently in the season to a 4-year extension or something. So he's locked up. But I would say a guy that I think that Brady or not, I think is actually realistic for them to possibly get is going to be Chris Godwin, actually, because the thing with him is I think with his ACL injury late in the year, I think they're going to have to pay far less for him. I mean, they're already, as his current team or whatever, they're going to be able to give him the lowest offer. There will be teams that offer him more, but it's still like, you get to stay where you're at. He likes the team. I'm pretty sure he's made his whole career in Tampa. So
kind of like the Juju situation with the Steelers in the
Yeah.
offseason, where like other teams gave him more, but he wanted to stay in Pittsburgh, so he got less to stay in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so they can already offer him a discount, come back to where he's familiar with. And also, too, his market value, I think, goes down with the injury. Now, it is a bad free agency for wide receivers, so he still is at the top of the list for that. And there's always the possibility there's going to be a team that, doesn't care at all about the injury and just throws him the bag of bags, But I just don't see that happening. I do think he's going to get less offers that he's going to like with that injury. So he's a guy that before the season I would have said had no shot at re-signing, but I think now there's a greater possibility they can get him on like a relatively good bargain. And then after that, though, it's a lot of guys that I think are just going to end up leaving. Like David, I think David's going to be gone. I think Sue, Fournette, those guys are going to be gone.
JPP.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys like JPP. Yeah, anybody that's really, I mean, they're not going to be able to bring this team back. They didn't win the Super Bowl again. It's just a lot going against them. So I will say Godwin's the one to prioritize. I think that's a realistic shot for him. But I do think Brady retires, which is massive news, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely going to be one of the more fun teams to watch during the offseason. We always kind of have our like more fun teams and more boring teams, and these two on this page right here, the Packers and the Bucs, are going to be two of the most interesting. So looking forward to that. Now we will move on from the losers and move on to the winners. Losers. Yeah. I was kind of hoping that this team in orange would have been one of those losers, but, unfortunately they're still here. So, but yeah, so we'll go with the game that's coming on first at 3:00 on Sunday, the AFC Championship game, the Cincinnati Bengals back in the AFC title game for the first time since like the 80s, I want to say. I don't even remember. I don't know if they ever went to the AFC title game other than like that year that the two times that they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Niners, which is pretty crazy that there is the possibility it could be Bucs and Niners in the Super Bowl. And I'm sure I said Bucs, Bengals and Niners in the Super Bowl. And I know the Bengals fan base is going to be like, oh, great, here we go again with this crap. But, who knows? We're not. They still got to get past the Chiefs. But Zach, tell us about the Cincinnati Bengals and what they need to do to win this game against, arguably the best team in the NFL right now, the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think Eric was going to talk about this one. I'll let Eric.
Oh yeah,
talk.
Eric. Yeah. That's right. Duh.
That's
sorry.
Okay.
Wrong cousin there.
All good.
All good. Yeah. So for the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously Zach and I were very happy with them that they were able to get the job done and beat the Titans. I was not on the podcast last week, but I actually did predict that one. I was pretty happy with that pick. I was not a believer in the Titans. Now, however, this week, the Bengals are definitely facing a much tougher task and going against the Kansas City Chiefs. So the first thing that they really need to do and they need to figure out is they really have to work on the pass protection for Joe Burrow. the definitely biggest weakness on the Cincinnati Bengals team is their offensive line. So if I'm Cincinnati going into this game, I'm expecting that the Chiefs are probably going to blitz a lot, and they're going to do everything that they can to bring pressure to Joe Burrow. So what I would do is I would try to scheme a lot of plays for quick passes, get some, slants and drag routes going, do some screen passes, do some, draw plays, do things like that to really try to counter, the blitzing attack that the Chiefs are probably going to implement against them. And then, if they're able to get the Chiefs to, back off a little bit, then that's when they can hit them, with some more, deep passing attack and just, straightforward power running game and stuff like that with Mixon and all that. That's going to be the key, because if they get in a lot of third and long situations where the Chiefs can just really tee off on Burrow, and a slant route's not going to get you 10 yards or whatever, that's where I could see Cincinnati getting in trouble. So they need to start with the quick passing game early and often. They're going to have to score a lot of points. I mean, we know how good the Chiefs offense is. I know the Bills went in with a similar game plan against the Chiefs, where in the last game, where if it was like 4th and 2 on the Chiefs 30-yard line, they basically said forget the field goal and they went for it. They're going to have to be aggressive. Settling for field goals is not going to be enough to beat this Chiefs team. So that's what they need to do on the offensive end of the ball. Now on the defensive end of the ball, I know this is way easier said than done, but they're going to have to figure out ways to contain Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And what I would do is just try to, go back to that Super Bowl footage from last year and, do what the Bucs did. And just, I'm double teaming Tyreek Hill as often as possible. And then obviously that could free up more opportunities for Kelce, but Tyreek Hill is just that home run threat. You don't want him getting past you. You don't want to be getting burned for like 60-yard touchdowns and things like that. Like, keep everything in front of you. Definitely, I would also, send some blitzes at Mahomes and try to force him to scramble. Just anything you can do to contain him, and just pray to God that you can, hopefully force a mistake or, make them settle for field goals or something. But they did force 3 interceptions on Tannehill last week. Obviously, Mahomes is, definitely a much tougher test than Ryan Tannehill. But if you can force mistakes on the Chiefs, that is how you can beat them. So definitely a tough task for the Bengals here. But if they follow my game plan here, they can get it done.
All right. Game plan from Eric from the Cincinnati Bengals.
Connor says, hopefully that doesn't happen. But.
Yeah, no. I mean, actually, the one thing I will say about your game plan is I hope they actually take the route of blitzing, because Mahomes is one of the best QBs in the league against the blitz. That's why the Bills didn't do it at all in that game. So I don't know. We'll see. But now, let me get the correct cousin for this one when I'm calling it out. Zach, tell us about the Kansas City Chiefs and what they need to do to beat the Cincinnati Bengals.
All right, to beat the Bengals, I think number one, the number one thing, which I think is most important for them, is honestly wake up. Like, as silly as it sounds, this team has been in this situation so many times. It could easily feel like just another game for them. And even more importantly, like, they're coming off one of the craziest games ever last week, scoring with that 13-second on the clock, field goal. So they need to wake up and try their hardest to get the emotions from this Sunday off of their mind and come into this game with a 0-0, like, Super Bowl on the line mentality. I think it's a lot of teams I see suffer from a crazy win. You see something crazy happens in the game, and they just come out flat the next week. And that's the number one thing I think they have to avoid. If they come out flat, it's not going to bode well for them. This Bengals team is too good. They're not going to win if they come out flat. I'll just say that. So avoid, the slow start, avoid coming out flat. Now, as far as in the game things for them to do, I think on offense, really just do what they did in the set, in the fourth quarter of that game. Just, I know the Bills had some injuries and stuff, but my gosh, it just seems like just use your speed. Just like take advantage of the speed that they have with everybody. I mean, that's the thing too, is it's Hardman, it's Pringle, it's all these other guys getting involved. And that makes it so much harder for the Bengals to stop, because the Bengals secondary, they've got some good players, but if you can spread the ball around to everybody, that's really just going to make this even more difficult for Cincy to win. And then another thing that I'll add to is don't get cute. I mean, you have a $50 million quarterback. Do not do a wildcat play or some stupid little trickeration thing. Like, keep your $50 million quarterback under center every snap. Like, it seems like every time they try and do something without him, and it just seems to go wrong somehow, or something messes up on it. I think it's nonsense that they ever try and do something without him at quarterback. But that's just kind of a rant thing that I've come up with. I'm like, why you have Patrick Mahomes? Why are you doing something without him here?
It's like if the Bucs took Giannis out of the game with like 5 minutes to go or something. Like,
yeah, it's like, why would you do that? But and then on defense, I'll say the biggest thing on defense, I think, is going to be hold the Bengals to field goals, not touchdowns. The Bengals have had, no problem really moving the ball in the playoffs, but their past two games, it seems like they've had to settle for field goals a lot. We'll see how aggressive they are and if they even try and settle for field goals. But it's really going to come down to, I think, the fourth down plays for this defense. They got to hold their own on fourth down or force them to field goals. I do think the Bengals will be more aggressive like the Bills were. I think the Bills learned their lesson from last year. That's why they were more aggressive going for it on fourth down early in the game this time around. So those are the keys for the Chiefs. My prediction, however, I'm going to predict the Bengals to win. It just seems like it's time. It seems like the Chiefs, like I said at the beginning there with my thing for them not to come out flat. I just think it's a possibility, a real possibility here. And then with the Bengals, I mean, Joe Burrow, I think, is an insanely good leader of this team. I think he's going to have them hyped up and ready to play, and it's going to be a good one. But man, I'm just a huge fan of Burrow, so I'm not going to pick against him here. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, I know I've said everything that I think the Bengals need to do. I will definitely be rooting for them, but I am going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs here. I think it's going to be a shootout. I do think it will be a crazy game, but I just don't think the Bengals are quite ready for a Super Bowl appearance yet. I think they need another year. So I still think the Chiefs are just too good. I'm going to say Kansas City takes this one 33-31. I'll pass it over to Nate. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, this is another prediction like last week with the Bucs, where I hope I'm wrong. I'm rooting for the Bengals, but I do think the Chiefs are gonna win. Joe Burrow is amazing. The Chiefs have definitely some question marks, but after especially the last 2 minutes of that game yesterday, I don't see the Bengals defense stopping the Chiefs offense, especially if they come out ready to go. So I think it's gonna be I'm gonna go Chiefs. Or wait, we do score predictions or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I want to make sure. I'm gonna go Chiefs 30, 36, Bengals 24.
Okay, well, before you pass it to me, I'll let Zach forgot to make a score prediction. So, Zach, score prediction for the Bengals. Zach?
Bengals. Yeah, Bengals 42, Chiefs 35.
All right, similar score to this past week. Well, I will say, for me, I'm kind of. It's crazy to think to me that I'm going to be alone as the only one rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. I didn't expect everyone else to be like, we're going to root for the Bengals. Aside from me already not liking the Bengals, I'm not a Joe Burrow fan. I don't know, something about him. I just don't like him. But anyway, as for my real prediction, I just don't see. I mean, I know these teams met like a few weeks ago, like towards the end of the regular season, and the Bengals came out on top. Like, I don't know. It just feels to me like the Chiefs are like they just keep getting better every single week. And, I don't expect their defense to have the kind of performance they did in that game against the Bengals. I think the Bills have a better offense, honestly, than the Bengals do. At least maybe not all around, but I think Josh Allen is still the better quarterback than Joe Burrow. So you're getting a little bit of a downgrade there. And like I said, this Chiefs offense is unreal. I mean, even like one of the best secondaries in the NFL was not able to contain this passing attack and even just the rushing attack. Like the way they got Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon involved in the game, I just don't see any way that the Bengals are going to be able to come into Arrowhead and take down this Chiefs team, and especially in January football. I mean, the Chiefs step up to the moment, and I think they're going to step up to the moment here again and get to that third straight Super Bowl. And I'm going to say the Chiefs take it 39-35. So we got 3 for the Chiefs and 1 prediction for the Bengals on that one. Now we're going to move over to the NFC Championship game, the 6:30 game, the San Francisco 49ers at the Los Angeles Rams. These two teams, obviously division rivals, met twice during the regular season. The Niners came away with the victory both times, and the Niners came away with the most crucial win of their regular season, beating them in Week 18 to get to the playoffs, because had they lost that game, they would not be here right now, because it would have been the Saints in the playoffs instead of them. So the Niners obviously know how to beat the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to be the one speaking for the San Francisco 49ers on what they need to do to win this game. Obviously, they're going to be going on the road to LA. This obviously is not going to be the same sort of bad weather situation that they had up in Lambeau. They're going to be in sunny Los Angeles in a indoor stadium, so not going to have to worry about snow or slippery ground or anything like that going on. But the main key for the San Francisco 49ers in this game, at least on offense, is, they have to get this run game going. They just have to keep sticking with the run game. They have to keep sticking to their guns. Feed Eli Mitchell, feed Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, I mean, he's such a weapon. He's getting up there like competing with Tyreek Hill as one of the most dangerous weapons in the NFL. I mean, he can do just about anything. He can line up in the backfield. He can come on end arounds. He can do short passes, long passes. He can even throw the ball. Like, this guy is a do-it-all player. And just get him touches, get him the ball early and often, because we see it too often where, you have these players that you don't get them the ball often enough early in the game, and then they just kind of go cold for the rest of the game. We saw it in that game, in the Bills Chiefs game, really, where, I mean, obviously the Bills were able to cope without him, but they didn't get Stephon Diggs involved in that game hardly at all. And I think it really affected their offense sort of in that middle part of the game when they didn't have their best weapon, working and running. And the 49ers really can't get in that situation with Deebo Samuel, because, if they're having to rely on like Brandon Ayuk to be the top receiving threat, at least from the wideout position, then they're going to be in trouble. So get Deebo Samuel involved, get George Kittle involved. This is something that they really haven't done enough in recent weeks, is getting Kittle the ball. I talk about it's important to get Samuel the ball, and it really is, but they need to get George Kittle touches as well. It seems like Garoppolo has been, I don't know if it's because teams are covering him well, or if he's just like, too focused on other stuff or whatnot, but it seems like he doesn't want to get the ball to George Kittle. And Kittle, he's still a top 3 tight end in the NFL, in my opinion. And also, he's a great blocker as well. Having him out there on the run game is crucial. That'll help you get that going. So, but get him the ball as well, because it's going to be, they kind of need to get the Kansas City situation going on here, where it's like, they have Tyreek Hill and Kelsey. The Niners need to get Deebo Samuel and George Kittle going, because at that point, your offense starts to become almost unstoppable when you have 2 really great weapons like that, and the Niners have a run game to go along with it. Like, the offense will just be unstoppable if both of those guys get going. The Rams obviously have a very deadly defensive line with Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and Leonard Floyd all coming after the quarterback, but their offense is really built to sort of counteract that. It's based on, what Eric was talking about earlier. It's based on short throws. It's based on screens. It's based on end arounds, stuff that doesn't give the defensive line a lot of opportunities to come after the quarterback. So, and obviously, they already have the game plan from beating them twice in the regular season. So that's going to be the keys for them on offense. Really, the keys for them on defense is just going to be keep doing what you've been doing in the playoffs. Like, no one really thought they were going to be here this late in the playoffs. I know, a lot of us, I know Zach obviously picked them to beat the Packers. But, a lot of people in the beginning had them losing to the Cowboys from the start. So no one thought they were going to be here. And it's really just been on the backs of their defense and their special teams. Their defensive front is as good as ever with Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead coming after the quarterback. It's going to be really key for them to get Fred Warner back if he can get healthy and get in the lineup, because he's really the heart and soul of that defense. And just make life difficult for Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford's had some very leaky sort of, iffy games this season. The Rams have been inconsistent. Like, he's been inconsistent, and it's led to the Rams being inconsistent. So make Matthew Stafford uncomfortable, stifle the run, make sure Cam Akers and Sony Michel don't get anything going, and put the game on Matthew Stafford's back, because, while yes, that might be a death sentence in some way, if Stafford's playing the level he can, but there's also a really high chance that, he could also, revert back to the, Matthew Stafford we saw when the Rams were in the midst of that 3 or 4 game losing streak they were on. So just make Matthew Stafford uncomfortable. Keep up the good work on special teams. I mean, that's literally the sole reason they won that game against the Packers, was that blocked punt and the blocked field goal and all that stuff they did. So those are going to be the keys for the San Francisco 49ers to win this game. Nate, tell us what the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford need to do to win this game.
Yeah, so kind of like you mentioned, these 2 teams already played each other twice in the regular season. The 49ers swept, so I think both teams kind of obviously have a ton of film to watch. They know pretty much what they each need to do. You touched on it for the 49ers, and for the Rams, it's kind of honestly, do the opposite of, what we're saying for the Niners. I think the biggest thing is for the Rams is Matt Stafford, how he's going to show up. Both times they played. The 49ers this year, he threw 2 picks, and they lost both of those games. So I think that it's kind of the biggest thing for them. They got all the weapons. They got Odell, who's been on fire lately. They've got Cooper Kupp. They've got Cam Akers is back healthy. It's really just going to come down to if Stafford doesn't even have to be amazing. He just has to not make mistakes, just put the ball in those guys' hands and not try and do too much. I mean, we know his arm is one of the better arm talents in the league, has been for a while, but he just has to not turn the ball over and kind of just let those guys around him do their thing. I think for me is really the deal, because if he throws 2 picks again and the Niners can get rolling, it's going to be a tough kind of to go uphill against a team like that. That's really the biggest thing, I think, for offense. I mean, the rest of those guys kind of know what they are. Kupp, Odell, all of them. I think the running game too is a big deal, having Cam Akers back healthy. I think that's something that wasn't really present in the last 2 meetings either. And for a lot of the middle of the season for the Rams, the running game kind of disappeared a little bit. I think getting that going too will help take the pressure off of Stafford in that passing game, and it'll kind of keep the 49ers defense more honest, and they can't key in quite as much. So those are the 2 big things offensively. And then On defense, I think the biggest deal, they just have to show up. Be the Rams defense, mainly on the defensive line that we've basically become accustomed to. Yesterday versus the Bucks, that was really why the game looked like it was getting out of hand to begin with. Was Aaron Donald was getting all in Brady's face, getting through the line, double teams, all that. It wasn't having any impact. It seemed like, and the Bucks have been depleted up front, so that's kind of a bit of an excuse for them. But they need to show up that same way against the 49ers. I mean, that their offense, like you said, with Debo, and if they get Kittle going, they can do all kinds of different creative things and make it really hard for defenses to, scheme against it. So I think having Donald and Von Miller and those guys up front, having them on and ready to go is going to be the biggest thing, because that kind of then neutralizes some of what the Niners can do. Is, if Aaron Donald's getting through double teams and getting in guys in the backfield, you can't really be as creative. You can't do the trick plays. You can't, get Debo touches in the backfield, all that crazy stuff. So I think that's really the big key for defense. I mean, the rest of it, they just have so much talent on that side of the ball that it usually seems to kind of work itself out. I think really just getting that pressure up front, and I guess just staying disciplined. Like you said, there's so much creativity, different ways you can get guys the ball that they got to be ready for anything, and the whole playbook's going to be thrown at them, I would assume, tomorrow. So, it's kind of, I would say, my keys for the Rams. And as far as predictions go, this was kind of a tough one for me because the regular season record obviously favors San Francisco. San Francisco, they won both of those games. They look very strong doing it, and they've made it through the first two games of the postseason. So they are looking tough right now, but I still have to go. In my head, I've got to go with the 49 or with the Rams here. They just have too much talent on both sides of the ball. I think they have been inconsistent throughout the year. They're not a sure thing, but I feel like with one game on the line, I think they're going to go and get it done. I think it's going to be too much with all those guys healthy, and with the way that the passing games looked the past few weeks, with Odell really coming on as basically another number one against on the other side of Cooper Kupp. So I'm going to go. I do think it will be a close game. I'm going to go Rams 31, 49ers 28. But curious to hear what you guys have to think or have to say.
Zach, you first.
All right. I am going to be picking the 49ers in this one. They're just an extremely hot team right now. Get winning all these games to get in the playoffs. They were hot, and then they've won these two playoff games now. They have familiarity with the Rams. Like Nate said, they beat them twice now. I do think Shanahan's the better coach too in this coaching matchup, which should be fun to watch. I think with the weather and the way things are going to be, I think they're going to have a more productive offensive showing than they had in Green Bay. But the real reason they're going to win is the defense. I think this defensive front, I expect 5 or 6 sack game on Stafford here. I think in the trenches, the 49ers have the advantage. I think they're going to scheme up the runs brilliantly. I think it's going to be a masterclass showing with Deebo Samuel. They're going to need all this stuff. The Rams, eventually, they're going to break through, with all their superstars. But it's going to be, I think, pretty low scoring. I'm going to say 49ers win 24, Rams 20. Eric, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to be going with the Rams here for personal rooting interest. I don't care who wins. I don't like either team really, but I am going to go with the Rams. For me, it's more so just with the 49ers. While I'm pretty sure all of their key players are expected to play in the game, they're really banged up on their offense right now. Deebo Samuel and Kittle both were like limping off the field after the Green Bay game. And from what I'm seeing, they're still going to practice and play and everything. But I just can't believe that they're 100%. I don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo to get the job done. I know Zach talked about the 49ers defense, but the Rams also have Aaron Donald and Von Miller and a shutdown corner in Jalen Ramsey. Their defense is pretty good too. And I trust Matthew Stafford more than I trust Jimmy G. So I'm going to go with the Rams. I do think this will be a close game. I agree with Zach that I think it'll be low scoring as well. I'm going to say that the Rams take this one 23-20. So Connor, it's 2-1 right now. What's your prediction here?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Eric and Nate on this one and go with the Los Angeles Rams. Zach's going for the Niners and Bengals Super Bowl rematch, whereas the rest of us seem like we're going with KC and the Rams. But yeah, for me, I mean, I know the Niners have been hot, but really it's just they've come again. I mean, the Cowboys really kind of shot themselves in the foot in that game, and really, I think that loss was more the Cowboys losing it than the Niners winning it. The Cowboys were the better team, and just kind of all the penalties and all the, stuff that was going on cost them that game. The game in Green Bay, like I said, the special teams mistakes by Green Bay, it was really that because the Niners couldn't get anything going on offense whatsoever. Like, had it not been for that blocked punt, like it still would have been low scoring, but the Packers would have still won despite the low scoring affair. And the Rams, to me, they're just peaking at the right time. I think that's, it's something that I used to, my dad and I used to always talk about with the Patriots and Tom Brady, how they would always get off to these seemed like they would get off to these slow starts in the regular season, and they would we start thinking, oh, is this the end of the Patriots dynasty? And then they'd have a couple sort of close games at the end of the regular season, like maybe a loss to the Dolphins thrown in there, but then come playoff time, they were a completely different team. And I think that's the way the Rams are looking right now. They're looking like they're peaking at the right time. Matthew Stafford is probably more motivated than any other player in the playoffs right now to get to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. The Rams are hungry. Stafford is hungry. And I think the Rams are going to get it done. I agree with Zach and Eric as well that it is going to be more of a defensive struggle. But I'm going to say the Rams are going to take this one by a touchdown and win it 28-21. So that is going to wrap it up for this episode of Clutch Crew Sports, guys. Great talks from everyone about all the teams, and looking forward to next week where we will be recapping these games, and looking forward especially to 2 weeks from now when we do our annual Super Bowl blowout episode. But until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Clutch Crew Sports. Subscribe on YouTube, Clutch Crew Sports. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you leave any questions for us on Twitter or on the comments on YouTube. If you want us to answer a question for you on the podcast, we'd be happy to do so. But until then, next time, guys, we will see you later.
Be clutch.
See ya.
Peace.